It's a really bold thought some days to even think of transformation, isn't it? When it's just enough to get through the day. And we all have those days, don't we? But funnily enough, have we all found it's in those days that the remarkable gifts sometimes come? When least looked for, the greatest gifts arrive. And that's what I want to briefly explore with us. So it's something that occurs, really, despite ourselves, or something that just occurs. Transformation is both. But also it is something we can evolve into and with. In other words, we can consciously transform. And in so many religions, we think of transforming as moving to a higher place or understanding. And surely this is our greatest aspiration. But to try and broadly summarise why transformation, the case for it, nothing is ever as fixed as we think it is. Everything can and will change. And it is up to us as to how we change with it. I'll say it again. Because nothing is ever as fixed as we think it is. Everything can and will change. And it is up to us as to how we change. This is so well defined by the Asatoma mantra of Hinduism. Now, in case your Sanskrit is a little rusty like mine, it goes like this. Om Asatoma Satgamaya, Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya, Mityorma Amritam Gamaya, Om Shanti Shanti Shanti, Shri Gurave Namaha. Which means in English, lead me from unreal to real, darkness to light, immortality, peace in this life. Om, peace, peace, peace. I bow to the teacher within. Those words are so strong we almost don't need to interpret them, but it's good to. So let's start with Om Asatoma, lead me from unreal to real. This is saying to me, and I hope to all of us, that life as we commonly know it is illusory. Otherwise we wouldn't need to be led. Put simply, nothing is what it seems. Beneath the surface, there is an underlying reality that we could call God or love, or peace, or the flowing universe, or nothingness. Now, this doesn't mean to say that we abandon our day-to-day surface life to dive down there. We're not saying that at all. But we're saying just to have this awareness that there's another world inside. Then we get to darkness to light. Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya. This ignorance is something, therefore, that we can call darkness. And the ignorance is simply an ignorance of the vastness of life. It's not just the simple oppositional way in which we define good or evil, strong or weak. That's not the meaning of darkness and light. It is a critique of our whole way of defining and limiting things. And it says that it is possible to move every day from darkness to light, to have a spiritual definition of evolution. Then we come to Mrit Yorma Amratam Gamaya, immortality, peace in this life. At some point, as we evolve, we might see that on some level we are immortal. Surely I am more than this body. This collection of cells, no matter how beautiful, even this mind, my greatest possession, friend and collaborator, will go. Something will be left. To me, this verse is the greatest teaching of old age. In a sense, what comfort we can take as we age. to think that there is something that is untouchable by the ravages of life. And then we get to Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Peace, peace, peace. Therefore, I can choose to make it my resolve and goal to find a state of peace while I can. Every moment that I can remain peaceful is a step on Jacob's ladder. And it is never lost. That's why we have that beautiful teaching from Hazrat Inayat Khan today. I have a special place for him in my heart because he was the greatest musician of India at the turn of the 20th century. And he gave it all up for spiritual contemplation. Found silence and then taught. It's an amazing life for us all to think about. But every moment we can remain peaceful is a moment that we make a companion of peace. I'm sure we would all agree there. And the companion of peace is not just us, it is love. And when peace and love join, they usually invite mercy around for dinner. And in this mantra, it starts with just one moment of stillness. My favourite is Shri Gurave Namaha. I bow to the teacher within. It's just so tempting for all of us to look for an external teacher, a guru, a distraction, well, a bit of good TV can help too. But just to become smart or wise or a leader, cult of ego or personality. But really we do know just where we are at. No one else truly knows what's going on inside. That's our greatest gift, the ability to know the truth. So when we're with this self, our own self, we can simply ask, why would I not bow to myself? Surely I deserve that respect. And when I can bow to myself, I can bow to anyone. Would we agree? But the self-love and self-respect has to come through practice. So hence I bow to my inner teacher. And before we go further, why did I choose a mantra? Well, mantras are pretty good things. They don't have to be in Sanskrit. But they work about transformation. Firstly, we speak mantras in languages that we do not do the shopping in. That's quite good. And our grocers, unless they're great linguists, simply won't understand if we order in Sanskrit, Latin, Hebrew or Aramaic. So, therefore, on some level, these languages are immune to our day-to-day state. But more importantly, in these languages, there is a tradition of words being used primarily for self-investigation. So without going too far, we're a part of something that is thousands of years old every time we speak or think a mantra. There's more we could say, but I want to move on because there's 1,000 diversions in every talk, isn't there? Because we get back to this question in my greatest Shakespearean voice, to transform or not to transform. So our next stop on this little thing is a little look at the Bardo states of Buddhism. I'm not sure whether you guys know the states, so I thought I'd briefly explain what I think Buddhism can offer us as a teaching on transformation. To summarise very quickly and slightly crudely, Buddhism says that between every two things there is a gap. Every single in-breath, every single out-breath has a little gap. We can try it now. Breathe in, breathe out. A point where you stop is a mini Bardo. So this is the greatest teaching in Buddhism, the power of observance. And we can go briefly into these, the names of the Bardo states in Buddhism, but that's really much less important than an appreciation that we all have access to these little gaps. And just at that weirdest moment, often the day when the toaster's broken and the gas doesn't work and the bill's overdue, the Bardo state appears. And what are we going to do when we see it, when we're really busy? These are the tests of transformation. because it doesn't come every day, does it? Anyway, the greatest bardo state is life itself. That's what Buddhism teaches. It's called Shine Bardo, the bardo of birth and life. So it's from conception until our last breath. And what that teaches us is that on some cosmic level in this great universe, we are just a gap in it. Isn't that incredible to think? Now, of course, if we think about it too much, we can just get incredibly depressed that I'm just so small and nothing. It's not to say that, but it's to say that on some level, as Shakespeare says, fear no more the heat of the sun or the furious winter's rages. Because on some level, it's all going to be okay without me. So it's going to be okay with me. Milam Bardo is the second bardo. It's called the dream state. Milam is seen as something we have access to every night. When we dream, we enter a gap world. Isn't that a great thought? Now, the thing about dreaming, as we all know, is that we have to process our day, don't we? So if our days are bad, upon bad, well, we're going to be dreaming them out, because on some level we have to process it. But even in the midst of that, something incredible can happen in a dream. And so many people who are suffering greatly have those euphoric dreams of flying or transcendence. In Buddhism, they're seen as the greatest release we can take. Then we get to Samten Bardo. This is the bardo of meditation. And we start to see this notion of conscious choice in the bardo states, that to access them as we get more serious about our inner world, they give us more benefit. This bardo is seen as being experienced by anyone with a regular meditation practice. In other words, something happens when we sit regularly, even for a minute. Things get released and a gap state enters. It's an amazing thought. But as I think we all know, when we build a meditation practice, our lives are never quite the same. It's not necessarily that they're easier with it. Sometimes they actually get hard. A lot harder. But the thing is, the meditation practice allows us to simply let it be on some level. In most Buddhist traditions, this bardo of meditation is seen as a huge part of life itself. And then we move on to the really interesting parts. And if you've ever read the Tibetan Book of the Dead or Sogyal Rinpoche's Tibetan Book of Living and Dying, these next bardos are really explained in great detail. So we get to this point in Samten, which chart the soul as a separate thing from the body, which is surely the point of a teaching on transformation, that we have to ask ourselves this question, one day, do I really believe this is me, or do I believe there is something more? So we get to Chikai, which is the moment of death. At tradition, this bardo commences right before death, and it continues until the dissolution of what's called the Mahabhuta, which is sometimes just called the Great Breath. Now, in a Christian terminology, we'd call this merging our breath into the breath of God, or the Holy Spirit. It's an amazing teaching. Then we get to the points where the Tibetans tell us something really quite interesting. There's something called Chonyid, which is the bardo of luminosity. In other words, when we leave these bodies, we have a brief and amazing opportunity to see the universe as it truly is. Now, isn't that an amazing thought? And certainly to me, I used to love those stories of Elizabeth Kubler-Ross and people who went to near-death experiences and came back. And we get this sense that people who nearly die get to have this experience of profound wisdom or profound peace or profound release. And on some level, it's nice to know that the majority of folks are really good, and that's what they're going to experience. It can give us just that little bit of more compassion and faith. And then we get to the one that really is related to the Eastern traditions more than the West, called Siddha, which is the bardo of becoming. And this is linked to rebirth in Buddhism and also in Hinduism. This bardo is seen to endure until the inner breath commences in a new body, which is determined by what's called the karmic seeds. In other words, inside us all, there is something that will lead to our next experience. Now, my feeling is it's much less important to define whether you believe in reincarnation than it is to do something else. And that something else is to believe in something at the point of death. Take the time and think, what would I like to believe in? This universe is so miraculous that what you want to believe in might well come true. So you may as well believe it. So we've got these bardas that tell us transformation is inevitable, not just possible, and they call us to action. Now, we don't have much time left, I wanted to give you the Bell version of transformation. And this little story, I think, is sort of it. It's not that we're going to get it necessarily, but it does happen. There's a great story told by Uvavluk, who was a 19th century Siberian shamanic Eskimo. He gave this teaching orally. One night, an unbeckoned skyborn fireball descended into my body. I was granted a great shamanic lighting, and the following words came from my lips. The great sea has set me in motion, set me adrift, moving me like a reed in the river. The sky and the strong wind move the spirit inside me till I am carried away, trembling with joy. Now that's a transformation, isn't it? We might not get it, but I've got one more for you because it's nice to be inspired. Now we speak those words of Hildegard every month, and Heather sang us O Pastor Animarum today, a beautiful piece from, I think, the best album title of humanity's history, the Symphony Harmonio Celestianum Revelationum, which means the Symphony of Celestial Revelations. Now, when she was writing that great album, she wrote this: and it came to pass in the 1141st year of the incarnation of Jesus Christ, Son of God, when I was 42 years and 7 months old, that the heavens were opened, and a blinding light of exceptional brilliance flowed through my entire brain. And so it kindled my heart and breast like a flame, not burning, but warming. Now, most of us will not be as lucky as Uvavluk or Hildegard, and actually maybe the fireworks version of transformation isn't quite right for us, because what happens when you have to get on with your daily life? It might be a little bit of an anticlimax a year later to think I had that great moment, but I still have to do the dishes, you know, that's just how it is. And if you talk to people who have peak experiences going up, and what goes up fast usually goes down fast. But we can have that more subtle version of transformation if we choose it. So I wanted to finish with my 5 modernised tips for little transformations in life. Now, they've all been tried out by far greater souls than most of us, but they're just modernised slightly. So number 1, to try it at some point: spontaneously give your lunch to a homeless person. Or just buy them lunch, a really, really good one. Take them out as you would your best friend to a restaurant. Now, isn't that a good thing to do? Number 2, when things look bad, just stop and wait. And when you're about to do something, stop. Do that 3 times. Just the whole point of resisting our natural impulse for action, which is really the greatest Western problem we have, isn't it? That we want to fix it as soon as it's a problem. I'm the white knight. Well, I'm not the white knight. I'm usually part of the problem. So let's just wait to see if the problem goes away before I do anything, and maybe the problem is lesser. Number 3 is try an experiment of monitoring how we feel throughout one day. This can be quite confronting, so don't be hard on ourselves. What I would suggest is that we reclaim a little bit of economics for our own minds. Now, economists are great about counting things that have, to me, fairly limited use. So why don't we use the tools of economics to keep a chart on where our mind is really at for a day. It's an interesting thought. Number 4, try and listen to others with our hearts for one day. Just one day at a time. This isn't that easy, is it? We like to think we're great listeners. But we have to stop thinking of our witty, wise and clever responses to really listen. And in order to do that, we have to trust that we actually know what to say without having rehearsed it. That's actually quite hard, isn't it, for all of us? The mind likes that merry-go-round. And number 5, one day but not too far into the future, I would hope that all of us can treat ourselves to a day that is alone. A day without distraction. A day where we have no media, that's no TV, no iPod, no computer, the list goes on, where we do not even read, where we do not even force a spiritual practice on ourselves. We have no discourse, but we simply rest. So can you hear that song? It's lovely for us to be here together. And in thinking about this, I'd like us to believe, just briefly, that something can transform in our lives today. It might be very, very small, but we must never give the hope